Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Ultraviolet Tide. Thank you so much for joining us for another week of the podcast. Today, I am taking over as host to do a Q&A with Erica. This is a continuation of a series that we started with an episode a couple weeks ago. So if you haven't listened or watched that episode, please go check it out. We covered a lot of my background, like work, education, how Erica and I met, and we even had a little fun rapid fire section. So please go check that out. A lot of those topics will probably continue into this episode, so it would be a great back to back. But without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Erica, who honestly needs no introduction. She is the founder and CEO of LUV. And she does operate pretty much as the face of the company. She's the primary decision maker. She graduated from Virginia Tech the same year as me, 2020, in May, with a bachelor's in communication studies and a minor in fashion merchandising and design. And I think I've memorized it now. So just as a quick kind of timeline background to recap, your history with LUV as well. You founded the company in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
We launched our first product in 2020.
Yep.
And since then, we've been building. You know, we take tiny steps forward. And, you know, we've been together through it all. And I guess I'll start off with my first question.
Okay.
This is kind of big picture.
Ooh,
Where
okay.
do you see LUV, or where do you want LUV to be in 5 years' time?
I love talking about the futuristic side of the company. Like, what can it be? What can it grow into? And I always remind myself when I'm like planning for the future and what I am thinking about the company becoming, that if you had asked me 3 years ago, I would have sold us so short. I would have had big plans for the company, but we have so far exceeded that. It's kind of mind-boggling to me how far we've come in such a short period of time. So if we're talking, you know, an additional 5 years, I mean, the sky is honestly the limit from the product category side. We want to have full lines for women, men, and children. So we're protecting your entire family to, you know, enjoy time outside, but stay sun safe as a family. Go for that family hikes, go for that family trip to the beach, and really allow your entire family to continue living your life on your terms, but staying super safe. So that's kind of, you know, from the product side of things, we really want to expand all of our product categories. And then from, you know, the community side of things and the education side of things and the skin cancer community and the melanoma community, I just want to see LUV be a innovator in the community for skin cancer awareness, prevention, and education. It's something that when I first had the idea for LUV, I didn't know if it was going to be a clothing company. I didn't know if it was going to be a community. I really didn't know what it was going to take on. And we're lucky that it has become a clothing company so we can give people the resources and then also items to keep themselves safe. So we're not just telling you, hey, go out and protect yourself, but we're saying go out and protect yourself with this sun shirt, with this lip balm, with this wrap. So that's something that's been really important to me is we're an apparel company, but we are so much more than an apparel company. And that's something Snigdha and I have talked about so often is how can we become a leader in the industry to activate change? And clothing is, yes, a wonderful way to do that, but also advocating for this community is something that's super important to me. So, you know, in 5 years, like, yes, I want to be a leader in the sun protective apparel space. The industry is growing so rapidly that I think in the next 3 to 5 years, you're going to see dramatic and drastic growth through all players. You're going to start seeing, you know, box stores carrying sun protective apparel, and which that's wonderful. But we also are hyper aware that we're a small company and we can't beat out the Targets of the world. So we're just growing and trying to we're basically hamsters on a treadmill right now, just trying to go as quickly as possible to grow. I don't know if it feels like that to you, Snigdha, but that's what it feels like to me a lot of the time.
Yeah. And I think we touched on this in the previous episode in the series, that even though we try so hard and we make so many smaller advances or whatever it might be, there's always somebody there ready to doubt you and ready to ask like make a really snide remark, or, say something really rude in general. But if you look back to where you started with the company, right? And I joined, I think, summer 2020.
Yep.
If you think about kind of the progression, it's crazy because we've built it from the ground up.
I know.
It's just like it went from nothing to now. There are people, like we have people who make repeated purchases.
I know.
Like we have that loyal kind of customer base. And yes, of course it's small, but we are also small. So,
oh my gosh. I have the craziest story to tell you. Yeah. I totally forgot to tell you this. So I, after the melanoma research, the MRA conference,
right.
Jen stayed here with me. So Jen is one of our LUV ambassadors. She also leads the Skin Check with Jen. She hosts that segment of our podcast. She stayed with me the night after the conference, and I took her to the airport the next day, and I texted her just to make sure she got on our plane okay, that everything's okay. And she said, Erica, I sat down on the plane and started talking to the woman sitting next to me, and she knows LUV. Yes.
Wait, did she also go to the conference? The person she was sitting next to?
I don't think so. I think she was from Northern Virginia. So I don't know if it was a hokey tie. I don't know if it was like some of the press that we're getting up here, but she knew LUV and told Jen, I've been wanting to go to one of their pop-ups. And I screenshotted our calendar. I'm like, oh my God, we're going to be in Loudon all summer. So tell her to like come out. But I thought that was the craziest thing ever. I'm like, are you lying to me? Like, that's amazing.
Are we famous?
Are we famous? In our little bubble, our little tech and Northern Virginia.
In our little bubble. Like Virginia/hokey bubble, we're famous. Mm-hmm. It counts.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think things like that are just so crazy. And that's a perfect example of how far the company's come in 3 years that I never would have imagined. I think so many people have believed in us, which is incredible. And it has really propelled us. But like you said, there's also people who have doubted us and people who have tried to, I don't know. I don't like to focus on the negative, but I feel like in every, positive stride you make, of course, there's going to be a little bit of negativity, but we just decide not to focus on it because we know the impact of the work we're doing and we're keeping our head down and we're building. And I think that's something that has changed since when the company was first founded is I was so focused on trying to do it right. I was looking at other companies. I was like, I have to do this right. And I realized that I needed to have my blinders on because we were building a company not to be like the other companies on the market. So by looking at them, I didn't want to imitate them because we wanted to be a differentiator in the space. So that's something that's definitely changed over the past 3 years is I look at other sun protective apparel brands, but they do not in any way dictate the work that we do. We are so on our own mission. We have our blinders on, we have our own goals. And like when I see other companies in the space and what they're doing, I'm like, oh, that's cool. But we are so tapped into our community that we know the direction, we know our trajectory, we know where we want to be and how we want to get there. And that's a really cool thing. Because like you said, we started from nothing. It was a Google Doc of ideas. And it's crazy. I was also listening to a podcast that was talking about, oh, you can teach entrepreneurship. Anyone can become an entrepreneur if they follow these steps. I'm like, well, yeah, technically it's not a difficult thing, but your mental game has to be so strong and so stubborn because there have probably been about a dozen times where we should have gone under. And we're like, nope, not today, not today.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you touched on this earlier, that there's other bigger players within the sun protective industry. But the biggest differentiator, or like the key differentiator, is that we are building a community of people who have either suffered themselves of skin cancer or have been caregivers or work in the medical field, are dermatologists, philanthropists that help other people who have skin cancer or had skin cancer. And with that also comes the fact that we can expand into other cancer communities, because I know each one is kind of unique in its like personality and its vibe, I guess. You know, since we were children, the breast cancer community, which, I mean, they're amazing, but they've been like front and center when it comes to press attention and events and all of that stuff. And I get it. It is what it is. But it would be great to kind of tap into that energy and make skin cancer and all types of skin cancer, not just melanoma, at the front of people's minds, or the top of people's minds when they wake up in the morning. But I think that key differentiator is that we have that community and we advocate and we give out, and not give out, but we sell clothing. And without that differentiator, I feel like it would be very difficult for us to kind of steal that market share from the bigger companies. And at the same time, we're also targeting a different audience. Like, we want people to take a proactive approach towards their health. Yeah. It's that simple. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think something that has been super sobering, the more that we learn about skin cancer and melanoma specifically, how it impacts young adults and adolescents in a way that I never knew before I was on this journey. So I felt so alone when I had my first 2 precancerous biopsies when I was 20, about to turn 21. I felt so alone and so confused because, again, I've said this multiple times, I thought it was an older person's thing. I thought cancer was something that, especially skin cancer, was always, you know, I was going to say like promoted as an older person's thing, but not even that. It was just like, that was my biased understanding of it or perspective of it, because I didn't have any resources telling me differently. And I think since that time, the more and more I've learned, the more I've realized how much work needs to be done for this adolescent and young adult space when it comes to skin cancer, because it's terrifying how many people have had melanoma and skin cancer in their early 20s, and how many people have passed away in their early 30s from cancers that could have been caught prior. And our episode with the Claire Marie Foundation talked about the fact that melanoma in young adults and adolescents actually grows more rapidly. It's a lot more aggressive. And you had that information, you're like, oh my gosh, everyone needs to know this, not to be scared, but just because skin cancer is so preventable. You know, you can catch it early, and it's, I don't know. I don't want to go on like a whole rant about that, because I know everyone listening already knows that, but that's something that if you're an apparel brand, but you're creating stuff for older individuals, no young person is ever going to want to wear that ever. I fell into that category, and I was like, I'm not going to wear an ill-fitting like tunic dress that they had the model wearing like over leggings or like jeans or something. I was like, I will never dress like that. Like, I try and dress cute, and that is not my version of cute, especially not at 21 years old. So really redefining that narrative has been super important for us.
Yep. All right. So in 5 years' time, we'll visit this episode again, and we'll see how many things we've checked off
the list. I know. I'm sure it's going to be one of those things that will come back and be like, man, we were selling ourselves short once again.
I really hope so. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
I know.
All right. So I know we touched on expanding our product line into further into women, but also into men's and children's. What is one item that you'd love to add to our current catalog? And it can be UPF, like with UPF protection, or it can be without, kind of like how we have items of both right now. But what is your one dream item?
Oh my gosh. So little behind the scenes secret, we have designs ready to go all the
Yeah.
time. So we have patterns and designs graded and ready to go. We just don't have the ability to manufacture them yet. So that stuff always kind of kills me because I want to talk about products that we know are in the works, but we can't talk about yet. But I think one thing, I mean, this really hit me yesterday, is we had an ambassador who passed away. And she was the first member of our close-knit ambassador community who did pass away from skin cancer, melanoma specifically. And that was really tricky. And I went back through and like read some of our messages. And she had mentioned to me before she went through, I think she was in the TILS treatment, that she wanted a UPF like head wrap, so that she could wear if she was losing her hair from the treatment, and wanted to be able to have a product like that and support us in the same way. And I told her, I was like, this is an amazing idea, because you're not the only one in this community who is going through treatment, is becoming super, super sensitive to the sun because of that treatment, and is also losing their hair. So that kind of hit me hard yesterday, as I remember her mentioning a UPF 50 plus head wrap. And I was like, if we ever do that, we're going to call it the Amanda,
Yeah.
and have that product. But yeah, that hit me really hard yesterday, because it's something that, you know, the mortality rate, we know the stats. It does not hurt any less. It hurts so bad. And to see the messages from other members of this community and the hurt that they're feeling and the love that they had for Amanda, it's just a lot. But I think having a product like that just shows the extension of the impact that our community has on the work that we want to do. Is like, yes, we have designs for a million different products that I'm super excited about, but also like, how can we continue to take care of this community and bring them the products that make them feel seen and heard and protected?
Yes, for sure. And I do think, well, I'm not sure. I feel like most hats are just without UPF protection, right? Even at the bigger sun safety brands. So having a UPF head wrap would be that would be a good one to add.
Yeah, and she wasn't the only one who's asked for that. And I was like, so fun fact for the audience, when we create apparel, we always have leftover scraps of fabric in varying sizes, just from cutting the pattern itself. And that would be an item that we could like sew those pieces together and also like recycle them technically, so they don't get wasted. So that's kind of cool. So that's always something that's in the back of my head.
Awesome. Okay, this one is kind of changing gears now.
Okay.
So when you started LUV in 2019, you were still in college.
Yep.
So how has college and your post-college work experience helped you run or start LUV?
Oh, it definitely did. Because I was a communications major, it's a very, very creative major. And it's something that you can do literally anything with. So what our professors through the major always try to get us to do is, how do you want to utilize the skill set in the industry of your choosing? So we had people who went into sports broadcasting. We had people who went into fashion, like I did. I mean, in communications, you can take those skills into anything. So it's very important to me to figure out exactly what industry I wanted to be in, so I didn't graduate and go like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do? And I always knew I liked fashion. Again, I minored in fashion merchandising and design. So I was building that creativity and like copywriting and journalism from communications, but then also really harnessing that creative fashion merchandising side through those courses. And things for me really started to take off when I found Collegiate Women in Business. my freshman year. And that, if you guys listen to the first episode, when I interviewed Snigdha, is how we met. That's the organization we met through. And things for me really started to take off when I became a part of that organization. And at first I was like, I'm not a business major. I don't know if they want me. But then I got involved in the leadership team, and I was supported and like lifted up in a way that I had never experienced before, where people said to me, oh, Erica's really good at this. And I was like, oh, maybe I am really good at that. Like, who knew? But that was the first time like people had really said to me, like in a professional setting, that I was good at something. And I learned about like leadership, and CWIB very much operated like a startup company, because you had people coming in who brought their ideas, and you were operating almost like as a think tank on the leadership team. And I loved it. I thrive in that environment. And fun fact, my first internship ever after my freshman year of college was with a startup company. And I was like, I can never go to a traditional corporate setting after working in the startup environment, because it was just the coolest thing ever. It's like I came on as how old are you when you're 19 years old? And they said, here's our social logins. Here's what we want to do. Here's what we want to see. We don't care how you do it, but make it happen. It was amazing.
Yeah. And I think that freedom only, that freedom will only come if you're working at a startup, most likely.
Yeah.
And
100%.
it's great. It's great that you found that within the Blacksburg community, because it's very rare.
It's great. And it's a reason I think that LUV was able to thrive, is I'm not scared by the unknown. I love it. I hate when people come and they're like, here's what we need done and here's how we want it done. I'm just like, yawn. I hate that. That's so boring. Like, I'll do it and I won't complain about it, and I'll do it to the best of my ability, but that's not going to activate my brain in the same way that you saying this needs to get done. We don't know how it's going to get done. Just be creative and figure it out. But anyways, that's kind of like all came together while I was in college. Is I had CWIB kind of lifting me up and challenging me. I had, my classes and professors who wanted us to harness it on exactly what we wanted to do. And then Apex came in, which is the Apex Center for Entrepreneurs at Tech, who finally gave me a platform to bring this idea to people and pitch it in a pitch competition. And I've told this story before, but in college, I always had to sleep with like a notebook beside my bed because I always had so many ideas. And Matt used to park at my apartment complex because it was right across the street from campus. And we used to walk onto campus together every day for our classes. And then we'd walk home at the end of the day. And every single day when we were walking onto campus, I was pitching him these ideas. I was like, wouldn't it be cool if this happened? And he turned to me one day, he's like, Erica, these are amazing ideas, but I'm not your audience and I can't help you with them. And I was like, babe, I was like, thanks for the tough love here. He's like, what you need to do is you need to go to the Apex Center for Entrepreneurs and you need to pitch these ideas and you need to talk to people who can actually help you. And I remember feeling like, oh, they don't want me. Why would they want me to come pitch? This is a clothing brand. You know, I'd always had the assumption, and I still get this opinion from people some days that like a clothing brand is like a cutesy company. It's not really like a real company. And I felt that way, but we pitched in the competition. We won the fan favorite. And that's when our story really started, because that fan favorite award was voted on by people in the audience and afterwards. So there were maybe like 60 people in the audience, and a dozen people came up to me afterward and said, oh my gosh, here's my story. Thank you for doing this. Like, my mom died of melanoma, or my grandfather died of melanoma, and like all of these stories. And I was like, okay, something's here. And it's really cool when like the stars align. I think that was the first time in my life when I felt like stars were aligning. Yeah.
And I think obviously this goes without saying, but without Apex being there in our initial stages, And I wasn't a part of the team at this time, but I know you guys always used to say, like, without Apex, like, it just wouldn't have been possible. So they are kind of like a pivotal point in our progress, I should say. I also wanted to ask you, I know you did and forgive me if I'm remembering the acronym wrong. Is it LIM?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the
In New
Laboratory
York?
Institute of Merchandising. Yeah, in New York.
Okay. Yeah. Has that played any role in?
Totally.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was the coolest experience ever. So I convinced my parents when I was in high school to allow me to spend 2 summers in New York City by myself studying at the Laboratory Institute of Merchandising. I lived in the college dorms. I took the metro down to the classrooms I can't even remember. I took the 6 train downtown to somewhere. I don't even remember the details anymore. But I convinced them to let me do that by myself. And I spent the entire summer studying fashion merchandising design and apparel marketing and like all of these cool things. And I was surrounded by people who were so much cooler than me. Like the people who were in these classes were like so chic and like showing up in their like designer brands. And here I was, like a little girl from Charlottesville who was like maybe 16 years old at this time, showing up in like my Target dress because I wore a uniform in high school. So I didn't have like real clothes. So I'd always go like shopping before and like pick out outfits that I thought were like New York chic. And I look back on little high school me, I'm like, oh, she was adorable.
Oh, man.
But yeah, that was so cool because I got to learn from people who were actually in the industry, and I learned so much about everything. And that was only 2 summers, but it was like super intensive because it only was a summer. And that's where I was like, I want to do an apparel brand one day. I just don't know in what form. I knew an apparel brand, but I was like, I wanted to give back. I wanted to be more than an apparel brand. And that's exactly what LUV is.
Look at you. All the pieces of your history coming together for LUV. That is awesome.
It's crazy. My parents say that all the time. They're like, it's like all of the puzzle pieces coming together. And I was like, well, I'm still on that hamster wheel. So hopefully the puzzle pieces stay in place and it continues to,
still working on it. Yeah. That's amazing. I think it's really good that since you were younger, you had kind of that sense of, I don't want to say purpose. That makes it sound so much more deeper than it actually is, but you had like a passion or an interest, I should say, in something. And you continued to pursue it from high school into college. And then when you started working full time, you went into real estate.
Yep.
Which I think more heavily focuses on the communication studies side of
marketing.
Things.
Definitely marketing side. Yeah.
But I'm sure client relationships, working with the boss and all of those things also work into LUV as well.
Definitely. It was something where I always feel like you can learn something from any position, whether it be, hard skills, soft skills, or just like how to deal with people. And real estate. I love real estate. Definitely different from fashion, but not as much as you would think. Both real estate and fashion have very similar clientele who are sometimes difficult, but that's okay because we know how to make them feel seen and heard and everything in between. But yeah, real estate was kind of my full-time passion that I pursued right out of college.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm so glad that you're leading LUV. I don't think anyone else would. You're irreplaceable because all of your experiences are like adding up, and it just it falls into place. It's good.
Oh, you're gonna make me cry.
All right. Oh no, do not cry. No, we're not crying. No crying.
Okay.
All right. Let's switch up the tone a little bit. Looking forward. What are you looking forward to in the coming months?
Oh my gosh, we're about to head out on a ton of pop-up shops. So we're going to see our clients in person. I am so excited. So in 2 weeks, I'm heading to Charleston, or I guess when this episode goes live, I will already have been in Charleston. And then we're doing pop-ups throughout the summer. Can't talk. Throughout the summer up in Northern Virginia. So we're going to be in Ashburn at One Loco Farmers Market throughout the summer. And
in One Loudon. Yeah.
In One Loudon. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, I still haven't figured out Loudon yet. It's all good. It extends to like a huge area. So, so Snigdha's my resident Ashburn and Loudon. So I'm super excited for those because when we first started, we weren't able to do the pop-ups because it was COVID. So we didn't have like a face-to-face interaction with our customers ever. It was completely e-commerce. And that's always super fun. The markets are exhausting, but you learn so much and people come up to you with ideas and feedback. And that's where I learned that people were looking at the tennis dress and they're like, oh, why would you buy a sun protective dress that didn't have sleeves on it? And I was like, well, because it was designed to be paired with our wrap. And when you're inside, you can remove it and feel comfortable in the heat of the summer and everything. But that was the first time that I really got like engrossed in what the customers were saying and that kind of feedback. And it allowed us to help cater our message even more.
Yeah. I know we have even more exciting projects in the pipeline, but I think the pop-ups are probably like, you don't even realize and 8 hours have passed. And you may or may not be keeping track of sales the whole time, but you're just like, oh my God, what just happened? But it's so good to see people and talk to them and they come up to you and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're doing this.
Yeah.
Or, you know, even if they're not, you know, a skin cancer survivor or they currently have skin cancer, it's just sometimes good for social validation. They just look at you like, wow, it's so great to see two young people doing this on their own or two Hokies doing this or, you know, whatever. The wording might be, but just the generic appreciation is really good.
Yeah, I agree. We also get some very interesting feedback as well. That reminds me that we have a customer base and then we have people who don't quite get the product and you don't have to be everything to everyone and that's okay. So I always get a little bit of a reminder of that too. Like I get some commentary that makes me giggle and remind myself that it's okay and not everyone has to like us. But yeah, we get some commentary that make me giggle sometime.
Yeah. I mean, you can't please everyone. So
Nope. You're right.
It is what it is. You know what I do hope though, at one of these pop-ups, we run into that lady that Jen met on her flight.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
Yeah. I hope Jen got her name so we can like,
I'll ask
put
her.
some feelers out and like,
yeah,
we'll be like, I know you. You don't know me, but I know you.
Yeah. That'd be so cool. I feel like there is starting to be a little bit of like people knowing us in like certain circles. I'm like, when is going to be the time where like someone's going to come up to us in public and be like, hey, I have LUV. Like, I feel like that's not as far away as we think it is. And I think it's going to be insane. I'm just going to be like, my mind is blown. What do you mean you actually like our brand? That's amazing.
Just having the recognition would be insane. I can't even imagine how it would feel if someone walks up to me or you and was just like, I have your product and it's on me right now. Like,
I know. That did happen to us in Blacksburg. We had a woman who came because she was like, I saw that you were doing this pop-up and I love you guys. And I've been following you for years since you got started. And that's a really cool feeling. It's really cool.
Yeah. All right. So now we are done with the work talk.
Okay.
We're going to get into a little bit of a rapid fire questionnaire situation.
I'm ready.
Yes. All right. Your favorite cake flavor?
Red velvet cake.
Red velvet. Okay.
Yeah. That was my favorite when I was a kid. And now it's like a nostalgic thing for me.
Right. Yeah. I feel like cake flavors are also they're such a mystery. Like you can start off with just like basic vanilla chocolate, I don't know, strawberry,
I mean,
spice
that's,
cake.
yeah.
And then there's like, I don't even know. Like, I don't know. There's like salted caramel cake suddenly, and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
what? Okay.
Ooh. I will say a close second is my sister-in-law made me a Matthew's wedding cake, and it was a dark chocolate cake with a strawberry jam and a champagne buttercream icing. 12 out of 10. It was incredible.
Wow.
It was
This
so
is
good.
this is Into the Mixing Bowl, isn't it, Amanda?
It is. It is. Yeah, my sister-in-law Amanda owns Into the Mixing Bowl, and she crushed our wedding cake. She made us an anniversary cake, and
Hmm.
Matt and I devoured it.
I'm sure. It sounds insane.
Really good. Really freaking good.
All right. Coffee or tea?
Coffee first thing in the morning, tea the rest of the day. I drink tea like all
Okay.
day long.
Okay. And what is your favorite kind of form or like type of each one?
For coffee, I like my Nespresso in the morning with a little bit of frothed almond milk or oat milk on top. It just feels all
Mhm.
fancy.
Yeah.
Nothing too crazy. And then for tea, I like chai tea, and I really like mint tea or like any kind of like chamomile calming tea because job's a little bit stressful. So the calming tea is always a good idea. So I like chamomile too.
Okay. Yeah. I think I've actually never tried chamomile, so
It's amazing.
I will give it a shot.
My mom used to make it for me when we were sick. She used to put a little bit of honey in it, chamomile tea with honey
Ooh,
in it, and it was like the cure for a sore throat.
very nice. Okay, I will keep that in mind. When the weather changes, I
Yeah.
will do that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What is your favorite knock knock joke?
Oh God. Snigdha, I'm not funny. I don't have any knock knock jokes. Oh, okay, hold up. I heard a joke the other day. Um, okay, you're gonna roll your eyes at me. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready. Yeah.
All right. Why did Adele cross the road?
No clue.
Say hello from the other side.
Oh my God.
I said you're gonna roll your eyes at me. I told you.
That was a good one.
Thank you. Thank you. That's all I got. That was my one joke.
You know, my favorite knock knock joke since I was maybe, I don't know, probably middle school. You ready? Knock knock.
Who's there?
Little old lady.
Little old lady who?
I didn't know you could yodel. Oh man.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
That's yeah. That one's a classic. Every time I tell that one, everyone's like, I don't know where I heard it from, but it's a
This is a
classic.
prime example on how we get along and why we get along. Exactly what just happened there was
Oh my
a prime
God.
example of our relationship.
Yin and yang.
Uh,
Oh man. All right. What is your favorite sport to watch or play? Either or both.
okay, watch is definitely a toss up because it's almost March Madness. I love watching basketball and I
Mhm.
love watching soccer. Those are like my
Ooh,
two.
okay.
If they're on, I will watch them. Like
Yes.
football, I could take or leave. If Tech's playing, I'll always watch, but I don't really care about like pro football. But basketball and soccer, yeah.
Nice, nice. And what
Hmm.
about playing?
Oh gosh, I'm not very athletic. I ran throughout all of high school,
Mhm.
but I'm so not athletic anymore. Matt jokes because our first date ever was a run on campus, and he's like, "I thought you were super athletic," and I was like at one point in my life,
Not anymore.
not anymore.
Yeah. I think that happens to a lot of people where like in grade school, you're doing like sports leagues and like I mean you're in PE, right? Physical
Hmm.
education class, whatever. Um while you're at school. So like you're forced to do things and those skills are constantly being like practiced, so to
Hmm.
speak. Whereas once you get to college, I mean, unless you do something intramural or, I mean, I know they had like some physical classes where like you could literally take weightlifting as a class.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I feel like there's too many options. It's okay.
I want to be like super, like, I love working out and I love being active, but I wouldn't consider myself like organized sports. I'm not your girl.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was the last rapid fire question I had for you.
You did well.
Thank you. Well, on that note, I think we're going to wrap this one up. Thank you so much for listening to the Ultraviolet Tide this week. Hopefully I will be back as a guest host very soon.
You will be.
For now, see you later. Ta-ta, bye-bye. Have a good week. And see you next time.
Bye-bye.